we seem to have slowed down on people coming in. So why don't we get started? Danny, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Yolanda. Hi, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Danny Kressel. Before we begin, I wanted to take a moment to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your week to attend this webinar. We hope that the topics that we cover today provide you value as you begin to prepare for summer sales. We're hoping to also keep this webinar a bit more lighthearted, hence the Hawaiians you'll see us wearing. We're going to be covering many beneficial features available to you through Ask More products that can be useful as we work through this typically less stressful but equally as fun summer season. A lot of what we'll be covering today is sharing unique and cool strategies being used by resorts from around the world to inform everyone here. Quick intro to the team, as you can see on the screen here. We've got Jen. She's our customer service manager on the far left. In the middle, you have Irish, our senior customer service specialist. And then myself on the far right, implementation and professional service manager. So before we begin, just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded, so if you have colleagues that weren't able to attend, you will get a follow-up email after, and you can send that to them. Also, don't save your questions for the end. Ask lots of questions throughout the whole presentation. Type your questions into the Q&A section rather than the chat section. So if you hover on Zoom on the bottom of the screen, you should see a Q&A button. Use that area to post your questions instead of the chat that you were posting in your favorite summer activities. Yolanda is also joining us as the moderator to answer your questions and make sure that we are taking time to discuss all of these. We will have an opportunity after each presenter to answer questions. And then at the end, we'll have additional dedicated time to a Q&A session. So to kick it off, we have Jen Dixon, who is going to share about unique setup and lessons learned from our friends down under in Thredbo, Australia, who just wrapped up their own summer season. With that, I'll hand it over to Jen.
Thanks, Danny. So what better way to get us into the mindset of summer than to look at some examples from a team that just wrapped up their summer season. As Thredbo is ramping up for their winter, they've given us some insight into their summer. Some unique factors Thredbo considered while setting up for summer included more packaged products, upselling the package deals through add-ons, donation-based fees, and utilizing subcategories to group product offerings, and therefore making the guest-facing experience seem simpler and more user-friendly. As we've discussed previously, and many have utilized this feature, add-ons are a great way to package products. From the screenshot, you'll see the highlighted attribute in yellow. This add-on does a great job incentivizing the guest to package the rental, as it states, add on mountain bike armor package and save 50%. They have created this add-on to also be in sync with the number of days selected, making the packaging process seem simple for the guest. But what makes this add-on so appealing is the marketing verbiage behind the attribute title. By stating to the guest that they'd be saving X% by adding to an additional feature to the product, it makes that product become that much more appealing. Now, if you scroll further down the page, you will then notice they offer other add-ons. For example, the 2 different insurance options. They gave the guests here the capability to select either or both. One insurance offers the guest the option to protect themselves from potential damage while renting, but the other insurance attribute allows the guest to make changes regarding their rental post completing their purchase while leading up to their visit. Now, if your resort wanted to make the flexibility insurance only appear if the guest selects bike insurance, you could then make the flexibility insurance conditional on the bike insurance, only then showing the flexibility option once bike insurance is selected. This makes it all customizable based on what your resort business and customer needs are. Thredbo has also initiated a donation product attribute on all products to offset the carbon emissions from their cars. This makes it simple for the guests to add $4 to their order. It incentivizes those to donate due to the travel necessary to get to the resort, as well as making the donation tax information easily accessible in the long description of the attribute. If your resort wanted to, you could add multiple donation attributes with different amounts for the guest to choose from, or have a single attribute show as the drop-down with varying donation amounts. Either are a great option and allows the guest in a resort to pay it forward in one simple click. Lastly, to wrap up our Threadrow portion of the webinar, this past summer, they really utilized subcategories to group product offerings. This makes the guest-facing experience simpler and more user-friendly. One of the categories and subcategories was around summer offerings. With having featured products as the main subcategory, the guest lands on when they visit the summer pairing category. This gives the resort a chance to market key products in multiple areas of the store. You can then have them show in featured products as well as any other category. This makes the guest experience simple for them to make decisions, as well as the resort's chance to market other products that they wish to drive traffic and conversion towards. Danny will further discuss capabilities for the resort to continue this effort of simplified guest experiences once they land on the product display page next.
Thanks, Jen. It's awesome that we have the ability to hear unique setups from our resorts around the world. Yolanda, are there any questions for Jen in the Q&A section?
No questions yet, but we're ready for them. But one of the other things I wanted to point out with Threadbow is they really spend a lot of time identifying the featured products that they want to put in front of their guests whenever the guests hit their site. So exactly what Jen said, using that feature products tab was awesome. And then they've gone a step further in the winter, where if you're buying a winter pass, which is a ticket for them, they then add rentals to that as well. And alternatively, they also have their rental category. So those rental products are being put in front of their guest in many different ways. And you can do it on the product display page right away and add your rentals and lift tickets in the same process, or you can go to the rentals and go to a different page and look at that. So they're focused a lot on making sure those common products are presented to the guest all the time. But yeah, still no questions, Danny. So back to you.
Thanks, yeah. Cool. So I'm going to be sharing next, and to build off of what Jen shared, I'll be focusing on optimizing product attribute setup. So when I say product attribute or optimizing product attributes, I'm talking about creating the most efficient buying experience for customers. As you notice on the right-hand side of the page here, I wrote efficiency is key. We want to design products in a way to reduce customer confusion as well as the number of clicks to purchase. The solution to this begins on the PDP, or as Jen mentioned, the product display page. Aspenware has always offered a great customer experience, but we continue to offer new and exciting ways to improve upon that. In this section, I'll be sharing some ideas that you can implement on long existing functionality, as well as a brand new feature to improve the customer experience. The topics that I'll be covering in this section include conditional attributes. I'm specifically going to be looking at how to bundle products on the PDP. Then we'll hop into attribute icons, and we'll look into how to introduce visuals to the customer to streamline their buying experience. And then finally, for this section, I'll touch on that new feature that I referenced, attribute groupings, which allow you to further customize the PDP to give the best experience to the guest. So my first topic is utilizing conditional attributes to create a one-stop shop. When I say one-stop shop, I'm specifically referring to a single PDP that allows the user to build their own product packages. This increases the efficiency of the purchase process by reducing clicks, and it allows you to build in bundled discounts if you'd like. To help demonstrate this idea, we have an example from Aspen here, Aspen's bike park ticket. Imagine a scenario where our fictional character, Kelly, is booking a ticket for himself and his friend, JJ. Kelly already has a bike, so he selects the option for just the bike park lift ticket, as seen in the left screenshot. However, JJ is new to the sport and needs to rent a bike. Based on Aspen's product matrix, customers must also decide whether to book a performance or demo with their bike rental. You can see how in the scenario works on the right screenshot. When Kelly selects the lift plus rental package, he is prompted with another question asking which rental level he'd like. whether he'd like to add the performance downhill bike or the demo downhill bike. The benefit here is that Kelly can book a lift ticket for himself and also a lift and rental package for JJ, all from a single PDP without needing to answer irrelevant questions for his booking. On his bike park lift ticket, he did not have to answer the performance or demo bike question. The setup is easy to follow as an end user. So some of you may have heard me reference this in training sessions as a waterfall flow, where a selection of one attribute will trigger the appearance of another. This will help guide users through the whole purchase flow. So I have another example from Aspen. They're using conditional attributes in a slightly different scenario in this example. If you look at their downhill mountain bike project, that's what we're showing here. Aspen uses a customer height to determine bike size for any adult, but allows the customer to select a wheel size for any kids rental. So let's go back to our scenario and change it up just a bit. So let's say Kelly is booking for himself and his daughter, Maya. So Kelly decides to book the performance bike for himself and lists his height between 5'8" and 6 foot, as depicted on the left-hand side of the screen. However, for Maya, he selects kids bikes, but you'll notice how height has been replaced with wheel size. So Kelly selects the 20-inch wheel size, and with a few clicks, Kelly has now added both rentals to his cart. Now imagine if the kids and the adult bike rentals were on separate PDPs. Kelly, at a minimum, would have to double the number of clicks and also familiarize himself with 2 different PDPs. Combining the selections into a single PDP will make the checkout process much more efficient for the guests. One additional call out I wanted to make on this page is that Aspen has decided to add an add-on lift ticket to their bike rental product. If you remember in the previous slide, when we were looking at their bike park lift ticket, they had an add-on for the bike rental. So what Aspen is doing is allowing their guests to build their lift plus rental package from either PDP. So regardless of where the customer navigates to first, they can build that package. Good work, Aspen. The second attribute optimization that I wanted to call out is the use of icons. Icons allow the guest to differentiate between attributes or attribute add-on values on the PDP. Again, we're looking at Aspen's downhill bike rental as an example. However, now we're zoomed in on the add-on portion of the PDP, so a little bit further down. Imagine if this display didn't have icons. It'd feel much more cumbersome to the guest to read through each selection. The icons help the guest understand what each of the add-ons provide, whether it's the gondola for the add-on ticket, the shield for the insurance, the bill for the resort charge. Each of these icons clearly represent the add-on product that they are associated with. In addition, the icon also draws attention, so it's a great way to upsell add-ons. Lastly, I wanted to touch on this new feature that I alluded to, attribute descriptions. This was recently released in Aspenware's 2.15 version of Aspenware. So if you're on 2.15 or newer, you do have access to this functionality. This new feature allows you to further customize and enhance the customer purchase experience. As you can see in the screenshot here, I built attribute descriptions that indicate the flow users should follow on the PDP. Not only does it further separate different attributes, but it also allows you to essentially hold the customer's hand as they walk through the PDP. Attribute descriptions support HTML. So for example, you can change colors, fonts, and sizes. You can see on the page that I have made a large green text to draw a user to each of these attributes. And a great way to use this feature is to call out steps to the customer so that they can easily follow along as they answer your product attribute questions. Then, if you really want to get fancy, you can combine attributes or you can combine icons with attribute descriptions to create a visually appealing and easy to follow buying experience. So that wraps up the product attribute optimization section. Yolanda, do we have any questions in the queue on attribute setup?
You don't. You answered my question right there. I was going to ask about icons and the description. So I think that's super cool.
Yeah, everything that I covered can be used together. So nothing is exclusive and takes away functionality. So it can all be combined to make the best buying experience.
That's awesome. And also, so within that section as well, so if you have a question like high pro or development, you could then also have a second waterfall attribute pop up in that section as well.
Correct. And each attribute can have its own attribute description. So we can play around with conditional attributes and change the step numbers with those.
Oh, super cool. And then you could put like pricing, like $5 more or $15 more and that type of thing in those descriptions as well.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, no more questions. So back to you, Danny.
Cool. So next, in sticking with the commerce setup theme, we have Irish, who is going to be covering the differences in time-based and inventory controlled setup for activities.
All right, well, thanks, Danny. And actually a good presentation on that. I'm a big icon fan guy, so I like to have pictures to choose things. So thanks for pointing that one out. So when I was putting together the content for this portion of the webinar, I started by thinking back to my time at the resort. And I remember so clearly having to answer the question, so what do you do at a ski resort during the summer? As you all know, this is one of those questions that you had to answer when you were away from the mountain. And we know if you're a part of the summer ops crew, it's the time where you're wearing shorts and applying sunscreen and listening to grandpa scream at the top of his lungs while riding down on a zip line, or mom and dad giggling all the way down, enjoying the mountain coaster. And yes, actually this background is my actual mountain coaster experience. And if you listen to the video for this one, I'm giggling all the way down too. Good times for sure. Now, I do want to point out that we recognize that for the revenue and finance folks at the resort, summer is that time to enhance that bottom line. So right now I'm going to give you a quick peek into how Aspenware can provide a helping hand, if you will, in creating a memorable but managed experience, but more importantly, help enhance that bottom line. So you'll see on the right side of the screen, or on the right side of that slide there, we call out crowd control. And that's exactly what activity scheduling does for you. It helps control activity start times, limit available inventory, and of course, helps create a managed experience and provides yet another tool in your product administration tool belt. Now, Aspenware accomplishes this by providing two options. The first is through time-based activities, and the second is through what we call inventory controlled products. Both options allow you to control inventory, which is handy for things like for when you want to control inventory for a certain time of day. For example, if you have a specific time in the day that you are limited on staff or resources, you can lower the available inventory for that time frame. Now, both time-based activities and inventory-controlled products allow you to control inventory. However, each has specific advantages over the other. So let's unwrap those options a little more and walk through the specific advantages of each. Now, starting with time-based activities, this option integrates in with RTP's Activity Manager. Now, if you already use Activity Manager at your resort or club, then you're halfway there with the product setup. However, Aspenware works with what you have already set up or can be built alongside future products. Another advantage that time-based activities offers is the ability to combine the inventory available and activity times in one display. And you'll see this actually in the screenshot that we have to the right. This gives a quick snapshot of availability while you choose the start time. I know the screenshot may be a little hard to read and there's not a lot of context around it. So we'll actually dive into a live example here shortly to take a look at that. One last advantage to note for time-based activities is that it works well when you expect to have a large volume of on-premise booking to go along with online sales as part of a product sale window. Because of how the inventory locking mechanism works with time-based activities, it allows you to better handle finite inventory numbers when you have both customers who book online and those who prefer over the phone. A few examples of time-based activities include things like zip lines, club entrance times, but this can also be more used creatively on things like bike fitting sessions in the summertime, or in the wintertime, alpine, snowboard, and Nordic rental fitting sessions. Now, On the inventory controlled product side, we see a few advantages over their time-based counterpart. The first off, for our revenue managers out there, inventory controlled products can still utilize Aspenware's dynamic pricing module. This can be extremely beneficial when looking at pricing, or either pricing windows or tiered pricing options. So say for your bike park tickets, you wanted to take advantage of those pristine brown POW time frames and offer a tiered approach to ticket pricing where you have 3 pricing levels for each available start time for your bike park. So for example, at 9 a.m. start time, you have 115 tickets to offer. You could have 5 available tickets at $70, then jump to 10 available tickets at $80, and then round out the time frame with 100 tickets at $100. So all 115 tickets for this time frame, for that 9 a.m. time frame, are tied to a single inventory pool. Next, for the product admins out there, this item is important because multiple inventory pools can be assigned to different attributes on a single core product. So what does this mean? This really cuts down on the number of Aspenware products needed to sell a full product line. For example, say you wanted to offer a bike park guided experience and have a morning, an afternoon, and a late afternoon session. You can configure a separate inventory pool to each of those sessions, but still only have one bike park guided experience product. Pretty handy. Finally, inventory control products are integrated with both RTP's inventory management system and CirrusWare's Max for Sale capacity system. So the 2 advantages I just mentioned above, so 1 being able to use dynamic pricing, and 2, using multiple inventories on a single core product can be used with both RTP and CirrusWare. Now, we've mentioned before that you can control the inventory available for specific activity start times. You'll notice that in the inventory controlled example on the right-hand screen, just like with time-based activities, you can still control the start time of the activity. Again, we'll explore a live example here in just a bit, but in this case, each time represented here is a separate inventory pool tied to either an RTP inventory pool or a CirrusWare Max for Sale capacity control. Examples that are inventory controlled are in fact similar to the time-based ones and can include things like gym, water park sessions, rentals of all kinds, lessons, and can also handle sessions that are scheduled for rental fittings and pickup. So now we'll jump over and take a look at a few live examples currently on sale at resorts. We'll first jump, we'll jump around the continent a bit and first head out to Tahoe Donner on the West Coast and see how they're using time-based activities to help control capacity in the rec center. Then we'll head over to Aspen Snowmass and take a look at how they're using inventory pool controlled products to help create the managed experience by identifying a meeting time on one of the options of their Lost Forest activity. Then finally, we'll head to Jackson Hole and see another inventory pool example where they've used inventory pools to control the start time of their paragliding product. This is the fun thing about ski resorts in the summertime. There's all sorts of fun things to do. We'll also be able to see how they utilize a different control type and select a start time on that paragliding product. So with that, let's go take a look. I'm going to jump off here and switch screens on you a little bit. All right. So as we mentioned before, we're going to head out to Tahoe Donner. We talked about their rec center. So actually, we're going to dive down right into their gym and pool category and look specifically at their rec center gym entry. So let's take a look at that product. Now, with any other activity, you typically start your experience by selecting the date in which you're going to arrive. So in this case, we'll scroll down a little bit and head into, and again, if you haven't noticed already, I'm viewing this on a mobile device. In this case, it's an iPhone, just to give you a good idea of what the mobile experience looks like. So I'm going to be picking May 28th, so this Friday, it's tomorrow. It's exciting. Here we go. With the activity times, this is the big call out that I wanted to make. If you look at when you choose the activity time, remember with time-based activities, you have the distinct advantage to show the available quantities for that particular time frame. So in this case, if we look at 8 a.m., there's 11 available. If we look at 10 a.m., there's 8 available, and so on and so forth. Again, that's one of the big highlights for time-based activities. So at this point, you would select it, hit done, and then at that point, you can add to cart and you're off and going. So, and I do want to call out to Tahoe Donner. They did a great job of utilizing activities across their entire resort. And quite frankly, you know, one of the leading resorts for using activities. So good job, Tahoe Donner. So with that, I'm actually going to jump over pretty quickly over to Aspen Snowmass and take a look at their Lost Forest activity. So if we're looking right now, we're actually in their summer activities category. And we flip over to Lost Forest. Oh, look, and there's my favorite mountain coaster. So if we go and look at this activity specifically, oh, and they also have paintball, it's exciting. So if we look at Lost Forest activity, again, like with any other activity, we're going to head over and choose our start date. So in this case, we know that they have some inventory in June. But one of the things that is specific about this product, if we scroll down here, there are two options to go along with this product. One is their Lost Forest base, and the second is Lost Forest tree line. You get a couple of different options with each attribute here. And so within that, if we choose the tree line as an example, we notice there's a meeting time piece that shows up. And this right here is how they're controlling their inventory a little bit. So, and as you notice, as part of this activity, they have to meet at the top of Elk Camp Gondola. So if you look at this and choose your start time, again, you don't have the available inventory per se. That's the difference between inventory pool and time-based. However, I do want to point out that each of these time frames are actually pointed to a different inventory pool. And again, for Max for Sale on the Cirrusware side, you could do the same thing. So at this point, you select the time that you're going to start and hit done. And at that point, you're off and going just like you were at Tahoe Donner, adding to cart, and you're moving forward and moving forward with that activity booking. So again, like with Danny's examples before, you know, Aspen has done a great job of integrating all of the features that Aspenware offers. And in this case, using inventory pool products to manage this product. So finally, we're going to jump over to and actually paraglide over to, how about that, to Jackson Hole. And their paragliding product, we're going to take a quick peek. And if you noticed already, I kind of jumped over to a full browser window. So this is what you're going to see on a desktop environment. And in this case, in their paragliding example, they have 3 start times for this. They have 7:45, 9 a.m., and 10 a.m. But one of the key things I wanted to point out about this example is how they utilized a radio button control type instead of a drop-down box. You notice the other 2 examples that we had, they were each drop-down boxes. In this case, it makes it a little more easier, I would say, for any type of user, whether it's a mobile user or a desktop user, to decide what they want to choose for their start time. So in this case, pretty quick and easy on this product. We're going to hit choose 9 a.m., choose our start date, and then we're off and going and adding to cart. So again, great job, Jackson Hole, for utilizing this control type. And just for a quick feature here, if you were to pull this down to a minor kind of a mobile environment, it's the same type of thing. You look at that, and the ability to select those is a little easier for sure for that customer, for that mobile customer. All right, so those are our examples of utilizing both time-based activities and inventory pool products. And since I have your attention and I have the screen, have the stage, I'm going to kind of point out a key feature that we have at Aspenware. It's called our Customer Hub. We spent a lot of time and effort here in the last couple months to get this up to par, and being able to utilize all of the documentation into one central one-stop location. And the 3 main things that I want to point out here is, first, it has a powerful search mechanism, so that not only searches article titles but also article content. For example, if we wanted to look up limiting capacity, we see what the options that we just explored here, and take a look at limiting capacity on product sales. Now, remember, you and I just talked about inventory and time-based activities. If we were to take a quick peek at the time-based activities, there's 4 categories of information inside of here. We have an overview, we tell you how to set it up, and then we tell you the common troubleshooting items if you run into them, and of course some use cases that go along with time-based activities. So great resource from a documentation standpoint. Second thing I wanted to point out that this Customer Hub has is the ability to grab all of the release notes for the current version that you're on. For example, we're currently on a 2.17 release, so we can go 2.17 and bring that up, and we'll see, it'll take us right to the 2.17 release notes. Again, great feature to have. Thirdly, last but not least, you can actually submit a ticket through this portal here. This goes right into our service portal and allowing us to better serve you in a pretty efficient manner. This goes on in addition to the other option of emailing us at support@aspenware.com. So with all of that said, I do want to thank you all again for your time and attention this morning. And now I'm going to pass it back to Danny to guide us through the rest of the webinar. So take it away, Danny K.
Thanks, Irish. As we're transitioning back, Yo, are there any questions?
There are. So I think maybe, Irish, you ended up answering this, but Matt from Aspen asked, he said, ASC doesn't use activities module. Is there a good reason for us to start using activities? So Irish, did you want to address that one?
Yeah, and I did kind of mention it. One of the items that time-based activities has is when you're controlling a finite amount of inventory and you're taking on-premise calls as well. Because of pooled inventory, there is some syncing time that happens. The activity management side of things is more real-time. And so if somebody at the call center takes a spot, it's immediately reflected on the site rather than having to wait for a sync of inventory. So that's one reason why they might want to consider that. And anybody else on the call may can also chime in and answer that.
I think that you answered it really well when you said that the availability shows. That's kind of what I think the main reason would be.
Sure.
But on the flip side is you can dynamically price your different times if you use your inventory. And I think you've done a really great job setting up your inventory. So my thought is, if you're happy with inventory, and you are right, the other comment Matt made was that the start time is the inventory pool. So in the examples that Irish gave, where you're selecting from that start time's mapped to the inventory pool. I think that the way that Aspen's done it looks great. So I think that there's probably not a huge need to jump.
I think another good point is what's nice about activities is if you're going to be booking for a group, activity shows how many is left is available. So versus with inventory, you wouldn't technically know until you got through checkout or something. So it could be like, I have 10 people, but there's only 8 left. Like we're gonna have to figure out a new time or a different date to go. So that's kind of a plus too with activities.
Sure.
Yeah, if it's a sold out, that time wouldn't show as an option, but if it's only one and you need 3 slots, that's a good call. Somebody also just asked, could you put the link to the customer hub in the chat box? So
yeah, very much so. And in fact, I forgot to share that because it's so easy. It's hub.aspenware.net, and I will put that inside of the chat box.
And we can also include that in the follow-up email that you all will be receiving after this webinar.
No more questions, I don't think. Nope, we're good.
Cool. I'll take it back from here. So the next topic that we wanted to cover in today's webinar is on Arrival. So I'll be switching gears away from that commerce topic that we were talking about in the previous few slides, and covering some of the use cases for Arrival. And where is it going? There we go. So before I begin explaining all this, I do want to add the caveat that Arrival is only supported with RTP. Now, most of you have probably heard of or seen Arrival before, but for those of you that have not or may need a refresher, Arrival is an application by Aspenware to allow guests to complete tasks before they show up at the resort. The best way to understand Arrival, and the way that I think about it, is to think about where the inspiration came from, the airline industry. So we've all been trained and conditioned to check into a flight 24 hours in advance. You get the notification on your smartphone and you check in right then and there. And if you complete all these tasks when you get to the airport, you can even bypass ticketing altogether. Arrival follows a similar flow to that. It allows guests to sign waivers, to complete child reg and rental profiles, and even upload photos for season passes. By completing these tasks on their phones, guests can expedite the process to engage in whatever it is they're doing at the resort. In addition, Arrival also allows guests to check pass or ticket statuses and retrieve QR codes to print media at pickup boxes. It even has a function to auto hotlist customer media based on missing requirements, like signed waivers. So we wanted to introduce this concept to the ski industry for years. And with the challenges resorts faced over the last year to encourage and even require social distancing, we were finally able to get the traction we needed to launch this product. Even though we're hopefully, fingers crossed, nearing the end of the COVID era, the value in Arrival still exists. And with this section, I'll be covering 3 use cases for Arrival. So the first use case comes from Big Sky. So currently, when booking through Ask'Nwhere Commerce, Big Sky requires guests to complete waivers through the checkout process. Most of you are probably already using this process. However, anyone ordering over the phone cannot complete these waivers through this purchase flow. So Big Sky will be utilizing Arrival to fill this gap and allow guests to skip the waiver signing process once they arrive at the resort. So one of the functions of Arrival is to analyze order and transactional data in RTP to determine who has an upcoming visit with an outstanding task. It then extracts that data, which can be loaded into a CRM, or as some of you might refer to them, the email marketing vendor. This vendor would then send emails to the guest with upcoming visits, and it would contain links to the Arrival site. The guests can then log into their account in Arrival, which, by the way, it's using the customer profile in RTP, and complete their outstanding tasks. Big Sky is using this integration to send customers who bought via phone a link to complete their waivers 7 days in advance of their visit. The next use case is Pass Checker. So Pass Checker allows the user to input their pass or RFID numbers, select a date, and determine if they have an eligible product for that date. So among many reasons, a season pass holder can use this function to determine if they have a product that is blacked out for a certain day, or to determine if they have completed all of their waivers before they show up for their first day of the season. So working hand in hand with Pass Checker is Arrival's auto hotlist functionality. This function can hotlist media due to missing requirements, and that hotlist reason code can be displayed in Pass Checker. So let's bring Kelly back for another example. So Kelly purchased a season pass but has not signed his waiver yet. Before his first day on the mountain for the season, Kelly wanted to double check that his pass will work. So he navigates to Pass Checker, plugs in all of his information, and sees that his pass is invalid. But the key part here is that he also receives a message that he has an outstanding waiver to complete. Luckily for Kelly, all he has to do is navigate back to the Arrival homepage, sign his waiver, and now he can show up to the resort with confidence that his pass will work at the scanning gates. Our last scenario involves an in-resort or on-premise Arrival flow. So Arrival has configurable options that allow guests to sign waivers and complete other outstanding tasks without an existing order or transaction in RTP. So this flow can be demonstrated with the following scenario. And I'll bring Kelly and Maya back one final time. So Kelly shows up at the mountain and wants to purchase a bike park ticket for himself and his daughter Maya. When he gets to the ticket line, Kelly sees a sign instructing him to scan a QR code to complete a waiver before he gets to the front of the line. Kelly scans the code and it takes him to Arrival. He has never been to this mountain before, so he creates a new account and populates all of his required info, and then signs into Arrival. He then adds Maya as a family member and checks the 2 of them in. He is prompted to sign a waiver for both himself and Maya, which he does. Now, by the time he reaches the ticket window, he already has a complete customer account in RTP for himself and for Maya, as well as completed waivers for the both of them. All the sales agent has to do at this point is sell the 2 tickets in RTP, which is done in a jiffy. So you can see how this can decrease wait times at the ticket window and streamline the customer's process to engage in whatever activity they are engaging in at the resort. So that will wrap up the scenarios that we wanted to cover in today's webinar. Again, we really appreciate your time today, and we hope that you can take something you saw today back to improve your guest experience at your resort. Also, thanks to Irish and Jen for your time preparing topics in today's webinar. One other thing, please reach out to your Ask More rep if you have any questions about implementing any of these ideas that you saw in today's webinar, and then check out that revised documentation that Irish was sharing. Now, if you have any questions that you were saving up, please ask them in the Q&A section. Yolanda, are there any outstanding questions right now?
Yeah, we have a question from Chris. Is there documentation on the hub for setting up the arrival pass checker functionality?
I think it's in progress. I don't know, and Marty's been working on it, so I don't know if he's on here and can speak to it, but it's in progress right now, and I don't know if it's been released yet, so we can follow up.
Almost.
What did he say?
He said
almost.
Almost.
Just for edits. One comment I wanted to make about Pass Checker as well is, as you were talking, Danny, I was thinking about the summer uses for Pass Checker. And I don't know, there's probably a lot of resorts out there that offer kind of passes that maybe you renew your pass for the winter, but you get summer access, or you do an add-on for bike park access with your winter pass. And guests may be confused about what access they have and what access they don't. So in the pass checker, you can put in the date. You can also select the location. So that location could be a sightseeing location, or it could be your bike park location, depending on your setup in RTP. And so then the guest could be able to determine, is my pass good for sightseeing? Is it good for bike park? And also blackout days is key, looking at, you know, if you sell passes with blackouts on weekends and things like that, and guests can never remember which days are blacked out and which aren't, they can use Pass Checker to determine what days their pass is actually good. Okay, questions. There must be more questions out there. Not yet. Okay, if you've got no questions, type in the chat, what is your favorite beach in the world? While people are thinking of questions. Okay, Matt's favorite beach, Bonaire, Byron Bay. Oh, Casey, I'm with you. Lots of Cannon Beach in Oregon. Okay, while people are typing in their favorite beaches, any more questions? Okay, we have one. With the new options and availability, is there a good method to go by to what is best? To go by what is best? With all the new options and availability, is there a good method to go by what is best? Not sure who submitted this question, but I might get you to.
I think it might be talking about all the different configuration options that you have on your PDP. Kind of like what I was alluding to, just how configurable it is. Yeah. But so that there isn't like a set, like you need to add, you know, 4 attributes all with a radio button selection or anything like that. There's not any great recommendations around that. I think it's going to depend on your product, and if you're trying to upsell with that product, if you're trying to, you know, link any additional products to package together, you know, multiple products for the customers. I think in those senses, when you're trying to do that, it really would make sense to have product descriptions lay out the steps for the customer. So step 1, pick your snowboard or ski. Step 2, pick your, you know, your location that you want to pick it up, whatever. Like you go through all the steps and really like handhold the customer through that. I won't say, again, we have like strict guidelines or recommendations on you have to set up, you know, this product this way, but definitely work with your Ask More representative, because every you know, product is unique, and based on your requirements for the product, could have multiple ways to set it up. But really, we want to streamline the process for the guests. So think about how the guest is going to be navigating through that PDP and what would make it easiest for them.
I like to think of it like a conversation. Like if you were talking to that guest on the phone, what questions would you ask them to determine the best product, and our flow kind of can replicate those type of questions that you would ask if you were having the conversation. The question asker also asked, are there samples in the documentation to assist with this? I think that there's a lot of use cases in the documentation that would help.
Here's use cases and like screenshots, but there's not.
Yeah, there's screenshots for all the different configuration stuff, so you can see how it looks. And then again, reach out to your AskMore representative if you do have questions or you're not really sure how you want to set up a product, because we've seen, tons of different resorts and how they set up their products. So we know like what works for resorts and what doesn't. So that could be helpful in just getting with your AskMore representative.
Okay, I think that is it. No more questions. Let's check. Yeah, no, I think we're all good. Danny, anything to wrap it up?
Yeah, again, I just want to thank everybody for the time and being with us here today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.